ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। यथाग्नेर्दाहिका शक्ति रामकृष्णे स्थिता हि या सर्वविद्यास्वरूपां तां शारदां प्रणमाम्यहम्। नमः श्रीयतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे। So dear friends, sorry for a couple of minutes of delay due to some technical issues, and let us begin today's discussion. As always, we have been every month discussing something regarding Bhagavad Gita. So today the topic is because Shankaracharya's birthday is tomorrow, we have chosen this topic, that Shankara's commentary on Bhagavad Gita. And the subject is really huge. I was studying it, and then I thought that only discussing even Shankaracharya's introduction to Bhagavad Gita would take a long time. But we will try a few other points as well, because it is an important topic to think about. So let us begin with our salutations to Lord Krishna and Bhagavad Gita. Vande Vanshidharam Krishnam Smayamanamukhambujam Pītāmbaradharam Nīlam Malyachandanabhushitam Radhachittachakурendum Saundarya Sumahudadhim Paratparataram Devam Brahmananda Kripanidhim. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitaamritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Amba Tvamanusandadhame Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim. Swami Vivekananda and many other great teachers of our times have mentioned that one of the great works of Shankaracharya in his short span of life, 32 years only, has done so many unbelievably great works both at the physical and spiritual level, just unprecedented. He just gave a completely, what I should say, the new life to this, what we now call Hinduism, the Sanatana Dharma. It was rejuvenated by the advent of Shankaracharya. And even now, the study of Shankaracharya, therefore, is so important to understand our scriptures. And the great thing he did was to popularize Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is a part in Mahabharata, and it was just read as one reads Mahabharata. Its special, very spiritual significance in bringing up the spirits of people and turn their minds towards the highest goal of life, that was done by Shankaracharya. To see this tremendous significance of this dialogue between God, Krishna, and the Arjuna, the disciple, the tremendous importance of this dialogue, as you can see that today this Bhagavad Gita is read, studied all over the world, not only by the traditional, say, Hindus, but by all various different religions as well. You find that the Bhagavad Gita is studied as a very important book in their lives too. So, not too long ago, we had a lecture here at Vedanta Society in Providence by a Methodist pastor. She is a Lutheran pastor. So, she said, I just took up study of Bhagavad Gita for my interfaith class, and now it has become one of my favorite readings, Bhagavad Gita. It is so much inspirational and gives guidance to many places where we are stuck in life. It is a very practical guidance. And so, Shankaracharya has done this very special task by writing his commentary on Bhagavad Gita to make it a matter of separate study. Now many of course study Mahabharata, read Mahabharata, but imagine, how many people read Bhagavad Gita, how many more people read Bhagavad Gita compared to those who read the voluminous Mahabharata. Because Bhagavad Gita brings the essence of all Upanishads, as it was mentioned in one beautiful verse in Bhagavad Gita Dhyanam, that it is like all Upanishads can be considered as cows. And Lord Krishna, the milkman, he was he was raised in the clan of cowherds. So he is the milkman. All cows, the Upanishads are the cows. And then Sarvo Upanishado Gavo Dogdha Gopala Nandanaha. And Partho Vatsaha, the Arjuna, the Partha, Arjuna, he was like the calf for which the cow's milk is being given. But it is shared by all. The calf takes a little bit, and the milk, these days of course it is all artificial, the calf is absent in the equation, from the equation. But anyway, the milk is for that. And then you see that Partha, Arjuna is like that calf. So it is directed to him. So, and then all others get it. Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta. The one who is really wanting. The Sudhi means the one whose intellect is pure, good intellect. That person is called Sudhi, a purified understanding, who understands what is right, what is not right, and assiduously holds on to that which is right, thereby illuminating the life. Walks on the right path guided by the proper purified intelligence. So all those who have such intellect, who want sincerely to walk on the right path, they are the drinkers of this milk, Sudhir Bhokta. They are they take this milk, which is the essence of all the Upanishads, the cows of all the Upanishads. So, and looking at this significance, Shankaracharya specially commented on Bhagavad Gita, making it so popular amongst the people. Before Shankaracharya's advent, Bhagavad Gita was not studied so much. It is therefore some even go to the extent. Of course, I don't subscribe to that view. Swami Vivekananda doesn't subscribe to that view. But many think that Bhagavad Gita was not in Mahabharata to begin with. Shankaracharya wrote Bhagavad Gita itself and put it in Mahabharata. Friends, this is somewhat extreme and a view that has really no basis. But what it mentions, what it signifies is the importance of Shankaracharya in making it available to people. So, because of his wonderful commentary. And so, let us look at some of the very important salient features of this commentary. Friends, please forgive me. For in this short time, we will not be able to do full justice to all that he has mentioned in this Bhagavad Gita commentary. One thing here is to be noted, an authority like Swami Prabhavananda writes in his book on Hinduism, that Shankaracharya, when he writes about Shankaracharya, that it is just the modesty of Shankaracharya that he calls them commentaries. Actually, they are like the independent treatises. So, he begins this commentary by pointing out that this is the real this treatment or real presentation. Bhagavad Gita is a real presentation of this Sanatana Vedokta Dharma. The Vedokta means that has been promulgated by or spoken of by the Vedas. And that religion, he says, is branched into two. There are two ways, two methods that are there in this for the two different type of people. So he says that Dvividho hi vedokto dharma pravritti lakshano nivritti lakshanascha. This statement is quoted by so many people because it is a very important idea that there are these two ideas presented, that there is the pravritti. Pravritti means to go forward, and nivritti means to reverse, to come back. It is, what is this? These two, there are these two tendencies in human beings because of their different state in life. One tendency is to move and grab the things of the world. Let me do this, I want to do this, I want to achieve this. And this tendency is called pravritti. It is like the centrifugal force, this tendency that goes away from the center. You know mostly the centrifugal and centripetal force. So that, and the other is the force that brings things to the center. So nivritti lakshana, that is what you come back to the source, come back to the center. So pravritti, and both the dharma, the religion has to cover both these aspects, because there are so many people who have this tendency to go out and grab things. Now, for them also the proper, right, beneficial way of doing it has to be presented. That yes, okay, you want to get glory in the world, you want to become, get a very successful person in this world, fine, And now if that person is told, no, that is all illusory, don't go after it, and that person will not be able to listen. So, that person will go ahead with all those desires, but in the absence of the proper dharma or proper guidance in that matter, will do it in a way that will actually undermine his or her own good. So, it is to be understood that there are these two ways. One is for those who have the tendency to run after things of enjoyment. Now they have so much of momentum in that direction. If you don't guide it properly, they are going to just crash in that headlong obsession with the objects. They will just go headlong and crash. No, that has to be given proper direction. Many of you might have seen, in those roads, it is especially those days when the brakes were of the trucks. Now also it is there, brakes of the trucks may just fail. So when there is likely to be a downwards big slope, then before the beginning of the slope, there is a sign that please check your brakes, and if you have a problem with the brakes, there is a path that is specially carved out that goes to a higher elevation like that. So, if your brakes are not working, then what do? Go on that path. So, then the vehicle will stop there. It is because that's higher elevation that will provide the automatic gravitational brakes, and it will stop. Otherwise, it will become a disaster. So, if you have that kind of tendency to run after the world and no way you can stop that, then, you have to control it. One has to learn to control the mind. even when you are going towards the various objects. Learn to get the happiness out of it rather than breaking your heads. So, therefore, Shankaracharya mentions that there is this two type of religion that has been spoken of by the Vedas or the scriptures. One is for those who have the desires to run about. Okay, you fulfill your desires in a righteous manner rather than something that will cause disaster in your life, in the life of all those whom you love, and even in this social fabric, it will just tear it away. So, therefore, one has to follow that religion also. And then there is the religion when people have seen that there is nothing worth attaining in this world. It is all illusory. I have tried a lot. I have chased this dream. I have chased that dream. And so many other things in life. But then discovered that they are all dreams. Now I am thirsty to get the truth in life. So, okay, then nivritti means, okay, now come back. Come back to the source where you will find the total fulfillment. That is called nivritti lakshana dharma. So, both have been presented by Vedas. So, that is how Shankaracharya writes in the beginning of this his commentary. Tells that it is, yes, this is all what the God has told us in Vedas, that Vasudevakyam Brahma, that has told us in Vedas two types of religion. And so it is Abhyudaya and Nishreyasa. Abhyudaya means where you earn the glory in the world, and thereby, following the path of righteousness, that you work in the world, hog glory, get lot of things, and then examine while doing it. Is that you wanted? Is that what you wanted? And learn gradually that no, there is no satisfaction in the world. It is not possible, to without actually experiencing and examining that to come to the state where you can go back towards the source. It is very easy to say, but no, it is difficult to actually get convinced. I tell that incident many times. It was about close to 20 years ago when I had gone to Marshfield, our center near Cape Cod. At that time we had a retreat center there managed by Boston and Providence centers together. So I had gone there especially in the winter to see that it is quiet in the winter. In the summer times it is all thronged, that whole place gets crowded by the tourists and visitors and beach goers, and so there is no quiet around there. So I went especially in the dead of the winter. So, and then when I went there, the temperatures were far below freezing. So I went there was a very small fish pond, that we had lot of fish there, and I went there to see the fish were there under the film of that underwater. And then I said, wow, they are still alive, but I didn't see any food being put to them. So uh, our devotee, a wonderful man, Joe Dwyer. So I don't know how many of you have seen him, as surely there are many who still remember him. A great devotee, a wonderful singer, musician, and single-handedly he used to take care of that Marshfield property living there. So I asked him that, hey Joe, don't you give that the food to that fish? He said, what do you mean? How to put? Where to put? It is all ice there. I said, no, it is water. No, Swami, it is ice. Hey, I just went there and saw it is all water. He smiled at me because he knew, He smiled at me, say, you saw, but it is ice that you saw. You didn't see water. Hey, what are you talking? I just had gone. Come on, I will show you. And he was agreeing good that I didn't bet. Otherwise, I would have lost the bet badly. It is. So he was confident. So he said, come on, let's go. And then what happens? I said, look, this water. Swami, that's ice. And then I picked up, he told me to hit it with a twig. And cut. Oh my goodness. It is ice. It is ice. But I did not understand it before testing, before experimenting. So there are so many people, maximum except a few, who get enlightened. It is, they think that this world is so real. They don't believe, the sages, that it is all dream. They just go headlong. Okay, then go in a way so that you can test it. Rather than getting deluded, go ahead and test it. So that is called the pravritti lakshana dharma. Okay, go ahead, test it. So, and then when you test it, now you know, and now behave according to that knowledge. So, I saw that most people who were not in that region, they thought that it is water. And that I then showed, no, it is ice. So it is like that. So it is, we have to learn. There is a learning curve in life, friends. So pravritti lakshana for some, nivritti lakshana for others who are comparatively very few in number. So this is what Shankaracharya brings in the beginning. Then another thing that is only hinted in Upanishads, but whole Bhagavad Gita is really permeated with that, and that the principle of God incarnating as a human being. It is told by Vasudeva, the God incarnate as the son of Vasudeva. That is how the name Vasudeva came to God. Vasudeva, the son of the king Vasudeva. So that is all the God appearing in human form. So this is what Shankaracharya's description here in the introductory commentary is. And this commentary, not only by myself but by many others who are much better scholars, they have mentioned that nowhere in any other book you find such philosophically clear enunciation of this principle of God appearing as a human being, God incarnation, avatar tattva, as we say, this avatar. It is how God incarnates. So you see very beautifully here that what happens is that for a long time the dharma people do not properly practice it. And why people do not properly practice it? Because of their minds clouded with so many desires. And so according to your desire, you twist the teachings. Isn't it, Priya? That it is what we want. If the scripture is not giving it to us, we say, okay, let us interpret the scripture like that. It is. And so instead of implementing it properly, we just miss the point there. Implement only what we want to do, that's it. Not what the teachers want us to do, but what I want to do, I will do in the name of teacher. My teacher told us that our scriptures tell us, in that name we will do whatever our desires are prompting us to do. So he says, Anushtatrinam kamodbhavat, a great word, that those who were supposed to implement these teachings, their minds full of desires. So they twisted the teachings. Instead of twisting the desires to follow the teachings, they twisted. They means we are like that. We twisted the teachings to suit the desires. So, and therefore what happens during the time, that is how the principle of one way of understanding time is. Things deteriorate in time. Deteriorate in time. Something, a very nice food preparation that is made today and would be very delicious to eat now. But keep it out in this warm weather for 2 days, and then you will not even be able to go close to it. So it is all stinking. So that is how these old teachings also become like that. They need to be again lived, presented by God Himself. That is why God comes again and again. This idea has been again elucidated by God Himself in 4th chapter, where Shankaracharya has again brilliantly commented upon it. So it is, but here it is, what happens thereby? The religion declines, and that unrighteousness, irreligion, is on the ascendancy. So that is why they, to protect this religion and to protect those, it is, the word here is not to be taken as a caste Brahmin. Brahmin here means Brahmanasya. Rakshanartham means to protect the life of those who are practicing, who want to practice the teachings of the scriptures. That is the meaning of the Brahman here. So give them the proper teachings. So the teachings are to be protected, and for that this God assumed a human form in the clan of Vasudeva. So Krishnena kila sambabhuva, and so he became manifest as Krishna, that it is. And he says, see, this is not a birth like somebody is born out of ignorance. One gets born because of the past impressions and past desires. Out of ignorance, one is forced to be born. Is not assuming the body willingly, but you are forced. That is why it is bondage, it is imprisonment. If you have committed a crime, then say you have been sentenced. You have been sentenced to spend 10 years or whatever. It is. Now you are not going to the prison willingly. You are to be there. It is, you have been sentenced. One of our Swamis says, he read it somewhere, that marriage is not a word, it is a sentence. In that sense, yeah, it is a sentence. So, it is not a word. So, you are subjected to this sentence, birth. But Lord assumes the birth by just will to protect others, to teach others. There is no alternative for us. Remember, as embodied human beings, we have the capability to learn only from human beings. The human beings, that is why they are appointed as teachers in our schools. No dog can apply for the position of our school systems. So it is only human beings. They have the capability to teach, and so God also therefore has no choice to teach humanity. God also assumes a human form, but his birth is different, independently taken up, not out of any compulsion. So it is like somebody, just think of, I gave the example of going to jail. If somebody just is going to distribute some nice things to the prisoners in the jail, now that person is going out of his own will, that today on the occasion of my birthday, I want to give all the jail inmates a feast. So, okay, so that person is not forced to be in the jail. By his own will he is going. There are so many different churches, they run activities for the inmates of the jails, that yes, we will teach them yoga, we will teach them some other things, and we will bring them the message of God, and so forth. So why? Because out of compassion. So God also assumes human body by out of compassion. Karuna, that is therefore it is said the matter of the incarnation of God's body is compassion. It is the compassion given a form, as it were, full of this sympathy, compassion for we suffering being. So Shankaracharya clarifies this, that to swaprayojana abhave api bhutano jigrikshaya, a very beautiful word. The translations of Shankaracharya's works, no fault of the translators, but his language is such that it is so difficult to bring out all the import of the original in translation. A very special language. So he says bhutano jigrikshaya, that it is out of just compassion towards all suffering beings. Why do they suffer? Out of ignorance they are suffering. Like a compassionate person. Some years ago, I had gone to those, delicate arts to see that in Utah. So walking in the mountains there, and then I climbed on that slope, but then was feeling difficult to come down. I thought I will just fall. It was a slope like that. But then I young man going from there, he saw my plight and said, hey, I'll give you a hand. And then no problem. So then he extended his hand. Why? Just out of compassion, just with the desire to help me. He was not getting anything out of it. So, like that, God sees that we all are suffering in this world. That is the constant aspect of this universe. Suffering. It is, I told you that story previously, that when people get married, they get 3 rings. When I was telling you 3 rings, no, we get only 2 rings. One is the engagement ring, and then the wedding ring, and third is suffering. So it is, we get 3 rings. So all, even if you don't get married, you get these 3 rings. It is, some suffer because they are not getting married, some suffer because they are getting married. It is all, suffering is the constant aspect there. So it is, the problem is that God cannot see this suffering, feels compassion. Let me help them, and so assumes the human body without having any objective of one's own. There is nothing to be achieved. That is why the life of these incarnations of God becomes so difficult to understand. Sri Ramakrishna says, therefore it is so difficult to believe in the Nara Leela, and that in the appearing as man. How can you don't realize, that somebody who eats like us, falls sick like us, takes vaccine dose like us, or how can that be God? It's like human beings goes to number 1, number 2 like us. How can that be God? Well, that is God. God in human body will have to act like a human being. Otherwise you will not learn from it. The problem that Bhagwan has mentioned in this 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is that then they think of me as human being only and forget my godhood. Or they make just a god out of me, not to be followed. So they will make a nice shrine and put the image there, and then okay, so that was God, we have nothing to do with him. We will offer some incense and yes, and say, God, you stay there, that's it, keep on showering your blessings on us, but we will not follow those teachings. So both these dangers have been explained there. So he says that there is swaprayojana abhava. There is nothing that God is achieving something out of it. No, there is absolutely no selfishness whatsoever. This is the special feature of this. Shankaracharya brings it out that, and it is told to whom? Arjunaya. But how is this Arjuna? We have to see, if it was only for Arjuna, then our Juhi says that then I don't have anything to do. Let Arjuna and let them worry. No, Arjunaya. How is this Arjun? Shoka moha dadhau nimagnaya. So the one who is drowning in the sea of delusion and misery, shoka moha. So there is no dearth of either of them in this world, always suffering. You can read the newspapers even 200 years ago. Nothing has changed, only the cause of the suffering has changed. It is 100 years ago, you would say the cause of the suffering is something like there is plague, and now instead of plague it is corona. That's it. Earlier, there is the problem would be that the male delivery is so difficult, it takes long time. Now we say that I have problem with my internet. So only the nature, the cause of the suffering changes. Suffering is always there. So therefore, to take us out, what is the way? The ignorance is the cause. So bring knowledge. And this knowledge is not just intellectual. And we are all intellectual giants, maybe. We can solve big mathematical problems. We can do whatever electronic things, bring the voltage from high to low, whatever, or low to high. All these things we can do. But, still that knowledge is not a bookish knowledge that what the scriptures want us to have, not intellectual knowledge, but it is an experiential knowledge. That is why so many intelligent people, they frankly confess that they understand it but cannot implement it. Understanding is fine, but still the life still keeps on going on the wrong track. Even though we understand it, we don't have the power to change it. So it is changing it. So that is why God gives the message powerfully, that the knowledge will not be only here, but it will seep here in our actions. Then only it can be called knowledge. So that is being given by this God. And it is then why Arjuna is chosen, that also Shankaracharya beautifully describes here, that could have been just given to anybody. Why Arjuna? Arjuna is the famous man, the most celebrated warrior of that time, a celebrity of that time, Arjuna. So if Arjuna does that, Arjuna takes it up, then others will follow. Now also, all those manufacturers and others, they shop businessmen, they show a necklace, and they want to sell that, but they will put it on some known celebrity sporting it. Hey, see how nice it looks. And then when that celebrity has put it on, all others also get inspired. Hey, that is very good, let me buy it. So when Arjuna implements this Bhagavad Gita principles, then others also will get inspiration. So in the commentary on the next chapter also he mentions this again, that it is the Arjunam nimitti kritya, means Arjuna has been made only a pretext to distribute this knowledge. So it is not only for Arjuna, but for us in this modern times too. And you may say Arjuna's problems were different, our problems were different. Arjuna was in that war, Kurukshetra war. We don't have that war right now, and I don't know how to fight. No, I am not a soldier like Arjuna. So those teachings are not for me. No, it is for us, because the characteristic pointed out is that shoka moha dadhau nimagnaya, that it is the one who is drowning in the sea of suffering and delusion. That is what we are. That is the common characteristic. Don't see those irrelevant details, like he was in the battle, he was from a princely family, royal family. I am an ordinary person, so not applicable to me. No. The characteristic where to apply is this. Otherwise, it's like that, a child was asked by a guest that, hey, what do you learn in your school? That, well, I learned some arithmetic, how to the additions and all that. So, okay, tell me that you have, say, 3 mangoes and somebody gave you 2 more mangoes. How many mangoes will you have? The child said, well, I can't tell that because we were only told about adding the apples. Now it is that is irrelevant whether it is apples or mangoes. So whether the Arjuna was from a royal family or whether he was a warrior or not, and all those things are irrelevant. So therefore these teachings are applicable in the modern times as well. So it is, then he said that we have to remember this. The purpose of Bhagavad Gita, therefore, is not to make Arjuna just start the war or get into the battle properly. No, that is a secondary thing. It is Bhagavad Gita is for delivering us from this pain. Had it just been for Arjuna to pick up the bow and arrow and start shooting the arrows on these Kauravas, then that was over, we wouldn't have needed it. But what is most important is that Arjuna comes out of this state of delusion and is ready to do whatever is needed. At the end of the Bhagavad Gita in the 18th chapter, therefore Arjuna says that, and Shankaracharya points it out there, that it is not that Arjuna now is ready to fight. No. He says, Arjuna says there, my delusion is destroyed. And all the effects of that delusion, nashto moha smritir labdha. Very beautiful those sentences are. So, if we want that our life also to be illumined by that, this is what is most important to be implemented. Param prayojanam. This, what is the purpose of this Bhagavad Gita is to take us to liberation. It is moksha shastra. To liberate us finally from all bondage. Shankaracharya clarifies that it is param nishreyasa atyanta uparamam moksha lakshanam. So it is atyanta uparama lakshanam. Samsara is completely gone. Means this bondage is completely gone. That is what is the important aspect of the knowing that Bhagavad Gita is not for some other purpose. It is for liberation. These days and even earlier also, you see so many books written on Bhagavad Gita that doing business according to Bhagavad Gita, and increasing how you can double your balance by following bank balance by following Bhagavad Gita. That is not what is Bhagavad Gita meant for. One has to see what is the purpose. It is not for the study of modern mathematics in Bhagavad Gita and all that stuff. For that there are other books. Let us not confuse between that. It is yeah, one of our Swamis used to say that it is, there was a book went to show him. This is a nice book published on Vedic mathematics. So he said, maybe, it is, what is this? Vedas are not for telling you mathematics. It is to bring liberation to you. Why you are confusing things? There may be something mathematics there or whatever as a side thing. But don't think that Vedas are there to teach you mathematics. What will you do otherwise? For learning mathematics, start studying Vedas, and then for spiritual practice, go and study. Those days it was a popular book of mathematics, Differential Calculus by Gorakh Prasad. So, for doing spiritual practice, you study that mathematics book. So, don't confuse these things. So, therefore, Shankaracharya brings out this thing that it is in the second chapter. You see that it is there is this almost at the end. There is so much philosophical important stuff mentioned here. We don't have much time to do that, to describe his commentary on that verse in Bhagavad Gita and the second chapter. That whatever is real never becomes unreal, and whatever is unreal is never becomes real. So try to see that. Therefore, that which appeared as real at one time, but gone, that even when it was appearing as real, actually it was not real. Because if it is real, then it will remain as real. It's a long commentary there on this verse, but it is very beautiful. And today we don't have time. While studying second chapter long ago for the Connecticut group, we had deliberated on that for quite some time. So I will move to the quickly to the verse here for a little discussion on this fourth chapter on action, right action, wrong action and inaction. This very important verse in the fourth chapter, that what is karma, what is vikarma and what is akarma. It is this from 16th to 18th verse of the fourth chapter. It has been described, and Shankara's commentary there is so beautiful that it is, he says, kartavya, what is that work is that which is prescribed by the scriptures as right for you, something that you should do. The proper work is mentioned here as karma. Vikarma means that is prohibited by scriptures. They are unrighteous work. Don't do that. That is called vikarma. And akarma is going beyond both. That is called akarma, because you have now no more purpose of getting engaged in this kind of work. You have reached the goal. So, even though it is a very important statement here, that although such people of knowledge, although their work is seen, it is actually no work, because their ego is not there. In the absence of ego, there is no work. So, it is, this is a long commentary here on this verse, the 18th verse, and it beautifully elucidates this how one should work. And what is, when you are working, know that your true self does not work at all. Like say somebody comes from New Jersey to Providence. Now the body has come, but since we mistake I with body, they actually haven't moved at all. I have not moved. The body just came from there to here. It is, that's it. So one must see that I am not doing any work. It is the body that is doing the work. So one must understand this differentiation. So then there is this beautiful idea that about renunciation. Many people get scared by this word renunciation. If somebody is advised to take spiritual life, then first question, then will I have to give up everything? What will happen then? Do I have to run away from home, from my marriage, from my family? No, that is not be taking up this sannyasa. This is a very famous verse to begin the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that it is, who is sannyasi? We have taken up this verse a few times. We had discussed this. Very important, and it is Shankara's commentary on this, that it is the doing the works without feeling, without being goaded by one's passions, desires. That is how commonly people work. Their passions, they are slaves to their desires. And so the desires drag them. Not that their intelligence, their understanding does not propel the work. It is their desires that propel the work. So, and therefore they get bound by that, they get enslaved by that. So, therefore, the one who does the work, having cut the connection between the desire and the work. One important aspect, that is what Shankaracharya mentions here, that what is sannyasa? That it is that that performing one's works, it is etc. Without being caught in that desires. Yo hi karma phala trishnavan sa karma phalam ashrito atra. So the one who has this bondage of desire of getting something out of that work, karma phala, the fruits of that work is what is sought. And so that person is not a sannyasi. The sannyasi is the one who does the work. Not that is free from work. Does the work, but without this poison of desires. That is a sannyasi. Whether he is actually having the spouse and the children and the home and all that, that doesn't matter. That person can still be a monastic because he is working without being pushed by the desires. So that is how the sannyasi is. And yogi also, that person is the yogi. So this is how he says that Shankaracharya comments here that only the external signs, their presence or their absence, like the this kind of, uh, ochre cloths, or some funny names, some Aghananda, Baghananda, and all that. That doesn't make anybody sannyasi. What makes you sannyasi is this working in this way. So, we have already taken more time than what is allocated for this class, and it is thought that this will be for some foreseeable future that we are thinking of right now, for the class given from the not in person. It is I am not traveling in person to Connecticut, but from next month it has been planned that we will have in person meetings again, and our Lakshman Thakurji has already booked the hall at Yukon stores. He would be sending links. He has already sent the link for the address and all that, so we can travel there and have a class in person there. So those who are attending now online, because they are far away, they are not anywhere close to Connecticut, I don't know whether from there we will be able to project it, transmit it or not. So, and we may not probably. So, it is thus, this would be probably the last YouTube class for Connecticut. So, therefore, I took a few more minutes. Are there any questions?
Yeah, there are quite a few questions.
Quite a few?
Yeah.
My goodness. Oh.
So, question from Beth Willis. Pranam Swamiji.
Pranam.
We always hear of the world being unreal. Is it real, although only from a certain perspective? Like ice and water are the same when you penetrate to the components of each.
Yes, so the world as God is real. Everything is real, but as God. It is, and we had occasion to discuss it previously also, that it is not real as this, all this changing, this variety. That is not real because it comes and goes. That is thus not real, but the God that is pervading them is real. I had given the example of the movie seen on the screen, and the characters in the movie, you see them and they come and go, the movie begins, movie is over. But what remains, the screen was there before the movie started, and the screen remains after the movie is done. And even when you were seeing the movie, what actually were you seeing? What actually were you seeing? Suppose, Beth, you think that there is a very nice flower I am seeing there, very beautiful garden, let me pick a flower from there. What will you touch there? You will not touch any flower, you will touch the same screen. If you see a fire in the movie and think that, well, that will burn everything, let me pour some water in the fire in the movie, you will be just making the screen wet, because that is the reality. This world, think of it as a movie. It is comes and goes, but the God who is like the screen, you can call that as self. Vedanta calls it many times as the self. to make it feel that it is in this also, in this picture also, it is the same screen. That screen is the reality. That is what is to be held on to. And that is why Vedanta is very practical. Instead of telling you to go after the illusory appearances, it tells you to go after that which is real, to get avoided by the cheatings.
Question from Soma Chakraborty.
Yes.
If God can't see us suffering, why give it to us?
Why?
Why give it to us?
God is not giving us suffering. He is giving us the knowledge to come out of it. It is the suffering, whether those you accept God or you don't accept God, the suffering is the nature of the ignorance. Those who get the knowledge, they transcend the suffering. So God gives us this knowledge. God doesn't want us to suffer, so gives us the medicine. But then, like some, stubborn little children, they don't want to take medicine. In my childhood, the medicines used to be pretty bitter. So I would cry and wouldn't take the medicine. So now, if I don't take the medicine, then I will continue this suffering. So Soma, therefore, the way is to assimilate the knowledge so that we will go beyond the suffering. Out of great compassion, God is giving us the medicine to overcome the suffering. Thank you.
Question from Max Meyer. How to handle intense sense perceptions? It is not really working for me to think that this unpleasant smell is only an object in me. The awareness or that this odor is in my environment is my karma.
Well, dear, that is because we are so stuck with it. It takes long practice. It may not be working for you in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and we are expecting results. It is some kind of, the things are so attached that it takes long time to take it apart. It is like mold, in some places you get that mold, and now to get rid of the mold, you have to, it is not just you broom it and it goes away. Many times you have to scrub it hard, put various chemicals. So we are so much stuck in this ignorance that it requires long practice, steadfast practice. You cannot really go away saying that, no, it doesn't work for me. It is not working for you because it is just little bit practice will not work. That is why in the our Puranas there are the stories that some sage was meditating for 10,000 years. Now what that indicates, it takes long time and assiduous, relentless, disciplined practice. Without that you won't get it. That is why it is, I give many times this example that just reading the book on swimming, 1 hour you can read it. To become Michael Phelps, it is not enough, you see. You have to keep that practice for a long time. That how they gradually built that kind of energy, that technique, those skills. You have to practice them for a long time. So it will work for you gradually, imperceptibly. As a child, I was told by exercise you can build your muscles. So I would do some push-ups one day, reading it, and then stand in front of the mirror to see how my muscles are built. That doesn't work like that. If I keep on doing that exercise for a long time and regularly, intensely, without taking breaks here and there, then it will work. That is why Patanjali mentions in that aphorism, very important aphorism for spiritual aspirants, that this samadhi, this concentration you get how? Satu dirgha kala. Know that dirgha means long. Long time practice. Only long time? No. Nairantarya. Satu dirgha kala nairantarya. Unbroken practice. Not that, oh, today I did and then tomorrow I forgot, then third day I had lot of work. That thing will not work. It is just as you don't forget to take food. So similar, this should not be forgotten. This should not be postponed. There should be no interruptions. Dirgha kala nairantarya and then satkara. There should be the feeling of devotion towards it. It is with great respect and adoration you should do it. Not that, oh, my Guru has put this burden on my head. Why did I really went to listen to that Guru? Forget it. No, not like that. So it is, you have to do it with a worshipful, adoring attitude. And then you get it after you follow it like that. So let us remember this. Any other question?
There are 3 more questions.
My goodness, oh.
Question from Beth again. Could you study math or anything else as spiritual practice if you are looking for God in whatever you are studying? Not as the only practice, of course.
Well, it is first you have to get grounded, and then in everything you will find spiritual wisdom. It is important to get grounded in what is my goal. See, the scriptures, the teachings have to come from those who have realized it, those who have experienced it. Otherwise you will not be able to get it. There is a nice chapter in Swami Vivekananda's Bhakti Yoga, a small but very important book. And there he mentions the need of the Guru. There is one chapter, Need of the Guru. He says there that, yes, Shakespeare has said, that they will find books in brooks and sermons in stones and all that. Yeah, but it is, you need to be at that level to find the books in brooks. You will not be able to see books in brooks unless you are of that level. It is, otherwise your books will be drowned in the brook, you see. So, it is very important that study it, get yourself firmly rooted in the spiritual goal, and then yes, then you can see the gems of spiritual wisdom in whatever other secular studies that you do. You will see them. But the knowledge is spiritual, not secular. Yeah.
Another question from Soma. How do we know which is proper karma?
Well, it is the proper karma. Your conscience tells you what is proper karma. Something that you do for discharging your duty without attraction or repulsion, without propelled by the desires when you do the karma, then that is the right karma. Yeah.
Last question from Manish C. Is suffering absolute or relative? Different people react to the same situation or event differently.
Yes.
Is it because of their respective karma?
Yes. It is because of the respective karma. The suffering is always relative. Means it is, if we are out of the relative world, then there is no suffering. In that sense, it is relative. And everything is suffering in the sense that we get attracted towards it as a source of happiness. And then what we get is called suffering. We feel the happiness is in hoping, I will get happiness. But what you actually get is suffering. That is how, because what you hoped for wasn't there. It is the source of happiness is actually God, nothing else. In nothing else is there happiness. But then one thinks that if I eat ice cream, I will get happiness. And so you go to have ice cream. But what there is, you discover that it is only putting some stuff in your stomach. A sweet sensation was there while it was on the tongue. But then afterwards, now how to digest it becomes a problem. So it is the suffering is the actually what we get. Because we are running after things which are illusory. So that is how the suffering is thus and differently perceived by different people. But the suffering is the common aspect. The reactions for the different ways are there by which people get it. So there is the suffering of disappointment, the sufferings because of that it was so painful and so forth. It is nobody goes towards an object thinking that let me get misery. Everybody goes towards any object to get happiness. But since that object is illusory, you don't actually get happiness there, and that is called suffering. Yeah. Okay then. So friends, thank you very much. And that next month, it is I think June 6th, that we will be meeting at that University of Connecticut, Yukon stores. That the address will be has been given by Lakshmanji already. It will be communicated to you. You can announce it, yeah.
So, address for next Connecticut in-person meeting: Hillel House, 54 North, Eagleville Road, Stores, Connecticut, 06268.
So let us conclude with the closing prayers, and then we will have our regular small Zoom meeting. गीता सुगीता कर्तव्या किमन्यत् शास्त्रविस्तरैः या स्वयं पद्मनाभस्य मुखपद्माद्विनिसृता एकं शास्त्रं देवकीपुत्रगीतम् एको देवो देवकीपुत्र एव एको मन्त्रः तस्य नामानि यानि कर्माप्येकं तस्य देवस्य सेवा. श्रीकृष्णार्पणमस्तु. Shri Shankaracharya Arpanamastu.